Jaya Gopi Janvalabha Girivaraja Yashodanandana Brajajanaranjana Yashodanandana Brajajanaranjana Jamunatira Vanachari Jamunatira Vanachari Jaya Radha Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada. Shri Shikondrachari Maipur Shashi Ki, Shri Tulsinath Maharaj Ki, Shri Giridhari Lal Ki, Shri Mati Devi Ki, Shri Nrsimhadev Bhagwan Ki, Shri Prabhupada Ki, Grantra Shri Bhagavatam Ki, Nitai Gaur Pramanandi. Namaskar Christmas to me, Shri Shri Namaskar to me, Namaskar Christmas. So, reading from Biography of Srila Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada Lilamrita, Preaching to America, Part 1. The ISKCON temple was in the Chicago suburb of Evanston, and on July the 4th, the day after Prabhupada's arrival, Edgar Vanneman Jr., the mayor of Evanston, came to visit Prabhupada in his apartment. Immediately, Prabhupada referred to the Time news article on crime. The remedy, he said, is to train first-class men. He told the mayor briefly of the Vedic society's 4 natural divisions, pointing out that society had become so degraded that everyone is in the 4th class, the lowest class, unsinking. The only hope was to train some first-class and second-class men. We certainly need a new approach, admitted Mayor Vanneman, because we're not being successful now. After less than half an hour's conversation, Srila Prabhupada was ready to make a bold request. Previously, Jagadish, the GBC secretary for Chicago, had mentioned that a very large municipally owned building across the street was vacant, and Srila Prabhupada decided to ask the mayor to donate it. Already he had explained to the mayor that Krishna consciousness could stop crime and drug addiction, and now he asked Harikesh to read a letter by Dr. Stilson Judah, author of Hare Krishna and the Counterculture. In the letter, Dr. Judah appreciated Krishna consciousness for transforming lives from drug-addicted hippies to loving servants of Krishna and humanity. So, we can stop this, provided we are given the facility to work on, said Prabhupada. When the mayor replied yes, Srila Prabhupada made his request. So I was thinking, Prabhupada said, just in front of here, there is a very nice house, Marywood, a big house. You have knowledge about this house? The mayor replied that this building was to be the new city hall of Evanston. Srila Prabhupada had not been told about this and he hesitated. While the mayor spoke of how the city's offices, scattered for so long in 9 different locations, could now all be brought together in this one building. But this is more important, Prabhupada said. City service is going on, but criminals are increasing. So why not give us a little opportunity? Mayor Vanneman explained politely that he would have to talk with the city manager, tactfully excusing himself from commitment. If we get a good place, Prabhupada continued, with the cooperation of the authorities, then our simple program is, as Professor Judah has remarked, to turn drug-addicted hippies into devotees. We shall invite everyone to come and chant Hare Krishna mantra and take prasadam. I began this movement in New York alone, and these boys gradually came to me. But my process was this, chanting and giving them prasadam. Everyone will be glad to accept it. They will read these books. These devotees here are practical examples. I am a poor Indian. I did not bribe them, neither have I any money. Prabhupada laughed. So now they have dedicated their lives for this purpose. So I want to do it on a large scale. But there were practical alternatives. Perhaps, Prabhupada suggested, the Krishna conscious movement could use part of the building for a year. He continued describing the efficacy of Krishna consciousness, but the mayor had little else to say. Prabhupada had prasadam brought in and asked his guest if he had any further inquiry. No, I really don't think I do, Mayor Vanneman replied, but I think I'd like to learn more about your movement, and I have enjoyed talking and listening to you, and I appreciate it. After the mayor left, one of Prabhupada's disciples questioned why they would want such a big building. The Chicago temple was large and not at all crowded. My idea is, Prabhupada said, I want to draw the attention of the authorities. If they cooperate, then we can push on our movement more vigorously. But with our present location here, we cannot, a devotee asked. We are doing it on a small scale, Prabhupada explained. It is going on. But if we get support from the authorities, we can push on in a larger scale. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Chicago is one of the most successful preaching missions in America to this day. Devotees do still get the cooperation of the local government there in their food distribution and other programs. And, they have the Rath Yatra in Chicago on like some public procession day, like with some special day in Chicago, like, millions of people on the street. Okay. So we're reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 5, Chapter 5, chapter entitled Lord Rishabdev's Teachings, text 20. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Tasmad Bhavanto Hridayena Jata Save Mahiyang Samamum Sanabam Aklishta Buddhya Bharatam Pajadvam Shushrushanam Tad Bharanam Prajanam Tasmad Bhavanto Hridayena Jata Save Mahiyang Samamum Sanabam Aklishta buddhya bharatang bhajadvam shushushanam tad bharanam prajanam tasmad bhavanto hridayena jata save mahiyang samamung sanabam Aklishta buddhya bharatang bhajadvam sushrushanam tad bharanam prajanam. Please repeat. Tasmat. Therefore, because I am the Supreme, Bhavanta, you, Hridayena, from my heart, Jata, born, Sarve, all, Mahiyang Sam, the best, Amum, that, Sanabam, brother, Aklishta buddhya, with your intelligence, without material contamination. Bharatam, Bharata, Bhajadvam, just try to serve. Shushrushanam, service. Tat, that. Bharanam prajanam, ruling over the citizens. Translation. My dear boys, you are all born of my heart, which is the seat of all spiritual qualities. Therefore, you should not be like materialistic and envious men. You should accept your eldest brother Bharat, who is exalted in devotional service. If you engage yourself in Bharat's service, your service to him will include my service, and you will rule the citizens automatically. Please repeat. My dear boys, you are all born of my heart, which is the seat of all spiritual qualities. Therefore, you should not be like materialistic and envious men. You should accept your eldest brother Bharat, who is exalted in devotional service. If you engage yourselves in Bharat's service, your service to him will include my service, and you will rule the citizens automatically. Purport by Srila Prabhupada ki. In this verse, the word Hridaya indicates the heart, which is also called Ura, the chest. The heart is situated within the chest, and although instrumentally the son is born with the aid of the genitals, he is actually born from within the heart. According to the heart's situation, the semen takes the form of a body. Therefore, according to the Vedic system, when one begets a child, his heart should be purified through the ritualistic ceremony known as Garbhadan. Rishabdev's heart was always uncontaminated and spiritual. Consequently, all the sons born from the heart of Rishabdev were spiritually inclined. Nonetheless, Rishabdev suggested that his eldest son was superior, and he advised the others to serve him. All the brothers of Bharat Maharaj were advised by Rishabdev to adhere to Bharat's service. The question may be asked why one should be attached to family members, for in the beginning it was advised that one should not be attached to home and family. However, it is also advised, Mahiya Sampada Rajo Bhisheka, one has to serve the Mahiyan, one who is very spiritually advanced. Mahat Sevam Dwara Mahu Vimukte, by serving the Mahat, the exalted devotee, one's path for liberation is open. The family of Rishabdev should not be compared to an ordinary materialistic family. Bharat Maharaj, Rishabdev's eldest son, was specifically very exalted. For this reason, the other sons were advised to serve him for his pleasure. That was to be their duty. The Supreme Lord was advising Bharat Maharaj to be the chief ruler of the planet. This is the real plan of the Supreme Lord. In the Battle of Kurukshetra, we find that Lord Krishna wanted Maharaj Yudhishthira to be the supreme emperor of this planet. He never wanted Duryodhana to take the post. As stated in the previous verse, Lord Rishabdev's heart is Hridayam Yatra Dharma. The characteristic Dharma is also explained in Bhagavad Gita, surrender unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead. To protect Dharma, Paritranaya Sadhunam, the Lord always wants the ruler of the earth to be a devotee. Then everything goes on nicely for the benefit of everyone. As soon as a demon rules the earth, everything becomes chaotic. At the present moment, the world is inclined toward the democratic process, but the people in general are all contaminated by the modes of passion and ignorance. Consequently, they cannot select the right person to head the government. The president is selected by the votes of ignorant Shudras. Therefore, another Shudra is elected, and immediately the entire government becomes polluted. If people strictly followed the principles of Bhagavad Gita, they would elect a person who is the Lord's devotee. Then automatically there would be good government. Rishabdev therefore recommended Bharat Maharaj as the emperor of this planet. Serving a devotee means serving the Supreme Lord, for a devotee always represents the Lord. When a devotee is in charge, the government is always congenial and beneficial for everyone. I was born in the darkest ignorance, but my spiritual master has fostered my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my respectful obeisances unto him. Shri Chaitanya Mano Bhishtam Ashtapatam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupagatam Ayam Tatati Swapadantikam. When will Srila Rupa Goswami has established within this world the mission for fulfilling the desire of Lord Chaitanya? Give me shelter at his lotus feet. Anshakapa Tarubhyascha, Kripa Sindhubhyevacha, Patitanam Bhavanebhyo, Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Let us offer our respectful obeisances unto all the Vaishnava devotees of the Lord who can fulfill the desires of everyone just like desire trees, and who are full of compassion for the fallen conditioned souls. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivas Arigoda Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So throughout this Srimad Bhagavatam, the different appearances of Krishna and Krishna's avatars, Krishna's incarnations are described. And whenever Krishna decides to appear in this world, then he chooses one of his devotees through whom to appear. And it's described in several of those accounts of Krishna's appearances, how Krishna appears in the heart of the devotee before he appears in the womb of the devotee, or in whichever way he appears because he's invited to appear by a pure devotee whose heart is pure. Here Srila Prabhupada says, according to the heart situation, the semen takes the form of a body. So when Srila Prabhupada says the heart situation, the heart is always situated in the same region of the physical body. So here I can assume that by the heart situation, Srila Prabhupada is talking about the heart's nature, the heart's health, the heart's energy. So, yeah, so when Srila Prabhupada also describes in other parts of his teachings that when the blood passes through the heart and passes through the region of that, passes through the physical heart, then it also becomes energized by the spiritual heart. And in this way, consciousness travels throughout the body, the spiritual, and in this, the body is conscious. And also, it also means that when the heart is pure and when the heart is energized with devotion, then the body also becomes spiritualized. I found this interesting as well because this year I was studying a lot of Ayurvedic teachings, and in the Ayurvedic system, there are considered to be 3 levels of treatment, and the most gross or the least effective treatment, but which is sometimes needed in an emergency, is to use surgery, where perhaps the patient is unable to receive the other more subtle treatment, then surgery might be required. And then the second most effective treatment is herbs and diet. But the most effective treatment, and it's interesting, this understanding has actually also gone into the medicine that's practiced in the Islamic system, which is called Unani, which originally comes from Ayurveda. And that is that the most effective treatment is mantra. And that, and that by chanting effective mantras, then the heart becomes pure, and then the heart can give energy to the rest of the body. So also we see sometimes this in the teachings of Srila Prabhupada to his disciples, that they may have been suffering from some sickness, some physical sickness, or some mental debility, some emotional distress. And just by hearing the words of their spiritual master, Srila Prabhupada, then their heart has become energized, and they actually were able to continue with their service with enthusiasm, even though their bodies may still have been taking time to recover. So we can take this as great encouragement as we grow older in years, and our body is less able to respond to things like surgery and medicine. But the body can always respond to a pure heart. So by taking time every day, like right at the beginning of the day, we want to, as soon as we wake in the morning, we remember the spiritual master, remember the names of the deities, call out the names of the deities, pray to the deities, and call out the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. So right at the very beginning, we're giving a chance to our whole physical and psychological machine to be energized by the pure heart. But if we allow, so I was thinking about this instruction that Srila Bhaktisiddhanta gave to his disciples. One should beat the mind with a stick 100 times in the morning, and beat the mind with shoes in the morning and a broomstick. I can't remember which way. I think it's shoes in the morning and a broomstick at night. So I was, I was thinking, well, I can relate that to the morning in some way, because it's like, get the shoes to beat you out of bed and pay your obeisances. But I couldn't really relate it to the evening. How can you just just about to retire. So what is the mean to beat your mind with a broomstick in the evening? But having read this purport, I was thinking, well, yeah, we're going to be asleep for a few hours, and we're not, because we haven't yet, because some of us are not yet pure devotees. Then we're at the whim of the subtle energies that are pervading the atmosphere, and all of the other electromagnetic radiations and things that are pervading the atmosphere. So yeah, we need to, so we can beat the mind with the stick of the holy name in the evening. And again, just as was in the morning, we start by remembering the names, remembering the deities, paying our obeisances, asking to be properly situated in service. So in the evening, we can say prayers to the spiritual master and the deities, asking for forgiveness in any offenses we may have committed during the day. And also in falling asleep, hearing the holy name by chanting. We can fall asleep chanting. And there's some disagreement amongst devotees who are doctors about the benefit of like sleeping with, recordings of music, especially if it's kind of like, certain electromagnetic vibrations. But we can chant when we're falling asleep. So, therefore, according to the Vedic system, when one begets a child, his heart should be purified through the ritualistic ceremony known as Garbhadan. So I also thought this was interesting. Quite often, Srila Prabhupada uses the word ritualistic when he's talking about procedures which are not really involved in Bhakti Yoga, in one sense, are superficial and not necessary when one practices Bhakti Yoga. However, here in this purport, and also in several of the verses in this section, the word ritualistic activities are described as being taught personally by Rishabdev to the citizens. And also in Srimad Bhagavatam in the 7th canto, when after Lord Nrsimhadev has killed Hiranyakashipu, then even though he says to Prahlad that your ancestors for 7 generations will be purified, still he tells Prahlad that you should perform the sanskaras. And or rather, Srila Prabhupada in the purport says that these sanskaras should be practiced. So just because something is a ritualistic ceremony doesn't mean that it doesn't have great spiritual benefit if practiced by devotees. And the sanskaras all contain the names of the Lord, the names of the Lord's devotees, and they all contain the mood of offering yagya for the pleasure of Lord Vishnu. And there are also very nice ways to introduce Krishna consciousness to persons who have been following these sanskars, even if purely for ritualistic reasons. Similarly, here Srila Prabhupada says in the next sentence, because Rishabdev's heart was always uncontaminated and spiritual, all the sons born from the heart of Rishabdev were spiritually inclined. Nonetheless, Rishabdev suggested that his eldest son was superior, and he advised the others to serve him. So certainly Rishabdev's sons were elevated. 9 of his sons are the Nava-yogendras, who instruct Maharaj Nimi, and that's recounted in the 11th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. And many of these teachings are very important and famous teachings, and there's no doubt that the Nava-yogendras remained very highly elevated Mahabhagavats throughout their life. However, there are other occasions in the in the Shastras, in the Srimad Bhagavatam, of Krishna's descendants acting in a less than exemplary way. For example, when the sons and grandsons of Krishna were like teasing the sages, and which led eventually to the annihilation of the Yadu dynasty, and many other like pastimes in the Mahabharata, when like very highly elevated persons fell down from their positions. Also described that some of Advaita Acharya's sons deviated from the parampara, deviated from the pure teachings of Lord Chaitanya. So, so here, Rishabdev wanted to ensure that the emperor to be, Bharat Maharaj, was going to be unchallenged in his leadership. Not just unchallenged, but that all of his brothers would support him. It's interesting, in Srila Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada mentions that, it is, that there's a tendency amongst family members to become envious of each other. And we can see this in business life, and especially in monarchies, in the various monarchies throughout history, the kings of England and the kings of Europe and of India also, and that there was, often a lot of envy between brothers, and even when persons are educated very much in spiritual values in their life, in childhood, then because ruling a kingdom is such a complex affair, and then naturally persons who are very intelligent will have slightly different opinions as how to best rule, and that those opinions will all be valid, and but there's a need for a leader, because when you have a very big kingdom like the whole planet, then you need time to execute your orders. And like even in a small administration of perhaps 100 people in a business or in a charity, then even there's a need to make plans for 5 or 10 years down the line, because if you're going to make changes in an organization, then you're going to expect that it's going to take people time to adjust, what to speak of the whole world. So therefore, Maharaj Rishabdev was here, Srila Prabhupada says, Rishabdev suggested that his eldest son was superior, and he advised the others to serve him. So even if his brothers genuinely had a better idea, they should still defer to Bharat Maharaj. So this is a principle that Srila Prabhupada also employed in teaching his disciples how to lead temples and how to lead projects, to be very loyal to the person who's been put in the place of the leader, and to assist that person even if we can't understand all of the reasons for the decisions that are being made, but to actually have faith that this person has spiritual authority, and therefore will get energy, just like, as we were talking before, from the pure heart of Rishabdev, then the energy came into the sons. So this is the strength of the Guru Parampara, that this pure energy, this pure spiritual energy, which is coming from Krishna through all of the acharyas, and then so that each leader the main responsibility of each guru, each acharya, is to maintain that channel of pure energy and to emphasize in all activities that if just like we say this prayer, Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapatam Yena Ruputale Swayam Rupakadamayam Dadati Swapatantikam. When will Srila Rupa Goswami, who was established within this world the mission for fulfilling the desire of Lord Chaitanya, give me shelter at his lotus feet? So we're known as Rupanugas because we're following in the footsteps of Srila Rupa Goswami. And it's interesting, Lord Chaitanya refers to Rupa and Sanatana as my very dear old servants. And yet at the same time, they had to go and work in a very degraded environment in the court of a king who was persecuting the Brahmins. Even though Lord Chaitanya says, "You're my very old servants," they were trained in administration because Rupa Goswami had a mission. Lord Chaitanya had a mission. So he wanted people who were qualified to lead a mission. But at the same time, he chose persons who were spiritually very pure, my dear old servants. And then here, Srila Prabhupada says, as soon as a demon rules the earth, everything becomes chaotic. At the present moment, the world is inclined towards the democratic process, but the people in general are all contaminated by the modes of passion and ignorance. Consequently, they cannot select the right person to head the government. So it's interesting here that in the passage we were reading about Chicago, Srila Prabhupada was commenting that we need first-class and second-class men to rule the country, but we've only got fourth-class men, and those are becoming more and more degraded also. So, although Srila Prabhupada doesn't usually have good words to say about democracy, here and in another purport in this chapter, Srila Prabhupada suggests that it mentions that the world is inclined toward the democratic process. And if people strictly follow the principles of Bhagavad Gita, they would elect a person who is the Lord's devotee. Then automatically there would be good government. So this is a really, this is a very good time to hear this because although we don't know everything that's going on the planet in terms of how the leaders are apparently cooperating for the first time, perhaps in 5,000 years, because they see that the problem is global and they don't really have any solutions, and they're all suffering the results. So we got an opportunity now, and everyone is confused. No one really knows what the future holds. So it's a good time for people to hear the principles of Bhagavad Gita. Whatever activities a great man performs, common men follow. Whatever example he sets by exemplary acts, all the world pursues. So people are really looking for a leader now. When a devotee is in charge, the government is always congenial and beneficial for everyone. So if people just heard that, when a devotee is in charge, the government is always congenial and beneficial for everyone, then people would want to know, how is that? How is that possible, that the government is beneficial for everyone? This is what people are actually talking about this now. Governments are actually talking about how they can benefit everyone, because they understand that wherever there's poverty, wherever there's like major kind of climate change disasters like soil erosion and water pollution, then wars start in those places because people starve, or they have to travel hundreds of miles to get fresh water. And then naturally, the people who live in those places where the fresh water is perceive a great threat, and wars start. And so, so now, although there are different attempts to try to find a global solution, one thing, even though there may be many different solutions which may appear possible, one thing that there is not is that there's no devotee leaders, and therefore people are very cynical. Actually, there was a really interesting study taken in the UK by an organisation called Common Cause, and they asked the public, how which do you consider the most important quality for a leader to have, or what is the most important human quality in today's society? And more than 70% of the people said compassion was the most important quality. And then they were asked, so how many people, they were asked, so what, on a scale of 1 to 10, how compassionate do you perceive other people in the society to be? So they just perceived that only 20% of other people were compassionate. So, but they didn't know the result. They didn't know the result of the first survey. They didn't know that 70% of the people think that compassion is the best quality. So it kind of indicates that actually the majority of people actually have good qualities, but because they perceive that the leaders have bad qualities, then they're actually not willing to really work as hard as they could. And also they're just very cynical about government and authority. So I think it's especially since we've got an opportunity to distribute Bhagavad Gitas and to also to tie people in with online courses on Bhagavad Gita and online courses on Bhagavatam, then it'd be nice if people could hear these kind of principles of spiritual government. And especially as devotees like Mahatma Prabhu and Radhanath Maharaj are giving talks in big companies like Google and Nasdaq and Deloitte and places like that, then perhaps some of the really big leaders can actually hear some of these messages. I'll stop there. Are there any questions or comments? Talk Shri Krishna Prabhu.
I just wanted Maharaj Rishabdev suggested that they serve Bharat instead, which is more dependent on the chariot system as opposed to a GBC system. And then Srila Prabhupada was talking about how he wanted to work with the authorities. So I was wondering, do we concentrate more on internal cohesion or make ourselves more socially interactive?
Well, I don't think we've got a choice now. I mean, ISKCON has been very socially interactive for 50 years. So, so devotees who are already in the field of social interaction, they've received that service. There are departments of the GBC which are dedicated towards social interaction, like ISKCON Connect and from many others. Things like the Varnashram ministry as well, and various different. And we're just for example, when we had the farming conference here, then many of the leading devotees in the farming communities in ISKCON went to Findhorn for that training. So it's all going on, but individually, and then some devotees come to join ISKCON like a strong background in perhaps in media and management and business, and therefore, as long as they're spiritually quite stable, also, then it's likely that the temple authorities will engage them in some outreach preaching, whereas other devotees is
Just to clarify, it was just because in the purport, Prabhupada ends by saying automatically the citizens, and actually it's right in the end of the text, right? It says automatically the citizens will be served and will be served right. And so I wondered, it seems there that you just have to work in amongst each other, and that everyone will be sorted out kind of automatically, so it doesn't seem to be the same strategy.
Well, as far as I understand, it's like he's saying to his brothers, you may have a tendency that you want to rule because you're also so qualified. You may feel that you've got a better perception of what's necessary. And Rishabdev is saying, don't worry, you won't be frustrated in your vision because the goal will be achieved anyway. But, you have to be patient, though. You have to be patient. And the fact that he's actually giving this warning, I think is very important that it's a nice that you've emphasized that you will rule the citizens automatically. So in whatever way we think we've got a deeper insight into a particular aspect of the problems of the people who we're trying to help, even if that is true, even if we do have a deeper insight, the overall benefit of all the people will be achieved by serving the acharya, by serving the authorized leaders, and then also, of course, it's up to the discretion of the leader to accept suggestions or ask for suggestions like that, and there's, we're fortunate that ISKCON has such a intricate and kind of system of checks and balances and ombudsmen, so that if there is any doubt that for some reason there's a problem, then there are ways we can address it also. Grantraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki, Srila Prabhupada ki, Nitai Gaura Premanandi. Karuna Bhavan devotees ki jai.
That plant looks like
It's looking a bit plastic. I thought it was plastic when I saw it this morning. Will it not come out the bottom, or is it in a pot?
it's alive.
Sorry?
Okay, the leaves is like sugar. We need to try it out.
I think it's 2 years.
It's become alive and because of its class.
Is this from the Prasadam hall?
No, it's from a orange plastic bag under the sink.
All right,
Oh, it's France.
you keep it there.
France. This is probably, give it back before it gets Christmas time.
It's just the same as now. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna.